Here. This hangout is live. Is it live? Is it telling you that
Yeah,
you're live?
I see a little live at the top of the screen. Yeah.
I think we're live. Awesome. All right, so for everybody tuning in to idculture.com, I have SerpentZA, and I kept calling you SerpentZA for the longest time, but it's obviously SerpentZA, I would assume, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, a lot of people make that mistake.
Okay, so I'm not the only one who makes
Yeah.
that mistake because I'm like SerpentZA. I'm like interesting. SerpentZA.
Yeah.
Also goes by the name Winston, obviously. And Winston, I discovered your channel, I want to say about 5 months ago, and you've been doing a lot of different bits on China. So just for people who don't know who you are, can you kind of fill us in of what you're doing in China and what your sort of YouTube channel is about?
Yeah. Well, I basically started my YouTube channel to show people what China is all about. Because when I first got here, I was like seriously surprised at how different China is to most people's idea of what China is. Most Western people think China's like a horrible communist gulag, where it's just like life is tough
Oh,
and
yeah. Turn on scene.
everyone's oppressed. But you come here and it's an incredible place. It's a very free, very laid back sort of lifestyle here. You can have an incredible time. So I started the videos to show basically friends and family back home, put their worries at ease, and they're always like sending me messages, "Are you okay?" Blah blah blah. So I said, "Look, this is what it's really like," and I started to get more and more people watching my videos, and sending me a lot of questions about China. So I decided I'd go ahead and make a series to show everybody basically what China was all about. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're also obviously, if you tune into his channel, you're going to see him doing a lot of motorcycle adventures.
Yeah.
That's a vague description of it. You're a huge motorcycle enthusiast. Can you just talk a little bit about that and how you got into
Sure.
that, or have you always been like a big, I say, bike junkie, or was that just one of those things that's like, wow, China's got a
Yeah.
niche for bike culture out here?
Well, I've always been into bikes, for most of my life. Coming to China, I couldn't ride a bike at first because actually in the big cities like the city I live in, Shenzhen, motorcycles are banned, so I couldn't actually ride. I really wanted to ride because China is such an amazing country to go riding in. So I just kept at it and I found a way. And so I eventually got myself a bike. I kept it outside the city, and I'd go outside the city, get on the bike, and ride. Got my license and everything, which is actually incredibly hard here. But yeah, China is one of the most amazing countries to go on a bike trip on because you just go out there and the scenery will blow you away. You'll go to these little towns or little villages in the middle of nowhere where they've never seen a foreigner before. So you turn up there and the whole village will kind of come out and start looking at you, and they'll be calling their friends to come out and look at
So
you.
you
And
kind of have that. It's similar in Korea. If you go out more towards the country, you're going to have that same sort of not even feel, but like you definitely draw an attention.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and as a foreigner, would you say that obviously I'm guessing like Beijing, you're not going to experience as much of that, but if you're going on some of these motorcycle quests, you're going to draw quite a bit of attention.
Oh, absolutely. Even if you do go to the bigger cities, depending on the area in the big city, you might get the same sort of attention. There's a kind of a strange situation in China. People are they pretty much stick to their local areas, and they don't really go out much from where they live and work. So, you might go to a place like Beijing, and in the main downtown CBD areas, there are lots of foreigners. It's not a big thing. Go a little further out in the city to the smaller neighborhoods, and you might start getting that sort of attention again. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's similar like a lot of different parts of Korea because I know a lot of people that do live over in China. Some have been there for like 5 years, and they said that just being in Beijing, they've never really had to like learn much of the language or anything like that. And a lot of this, I think, goes with kind of the English teaching territory, which not that that's a bad thing by any means, but I'm guessing you get a lot of exposure to a lot of people not knowing any English at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I came here 8 years ago. When I got here, especially this city, Shenzhen, there were almost no English-speaking people around. It was pretty impossible for me to actually find anyone to speak English, so I was forced to learn the language. But you do get a lot of people that come here, um, and they just stick around with other foreigners, and they just go to bars, where other foreigners hang out. Usually get a Chinese girlfriend who can speak English, and get them to do, all the interaction with the locals, help rent apartments and sort out anything they need sorted out. So they never really learn the language. Yeah, so you do get that here too.
Sure. How fluent are you, would you say? And not even being modest, just in general, I guess, on foreigners that you see every day, from being like born Chinese in the heart.
Well, fluent, I'd say. Well, I'm at the level where I can take care of everything myself. I generate my own business. I also do things like, well, I mean, anything I need to do, open a bank account, rent an apartment, basically take care of anything. I can do it, in the language locally. So I'm pretty good at sorting things out. It's not a big deal, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put myself somewhere around a 6 or so.
Wow. No, it's really good, and it's a very difficult language to learn, obviously. So, and do you find yourself like having some of the mannerisms and stuff like that rub off on you? Like,
Yeah.
It's a weird example, but it's like when I got back, my girlfriend teases me all the time. I'll brush my teeth in the shower. It's really bizarre, but it's just something that they do, and you get used to it. There's a lot of them too. I didn't even know that. It just sort of rubs off on you, and a lot of them are definitely for a good thing. But I wonder which ones in China have probably changed your life, or just rub off on you in general.
Well, I definitely drive a lot worse now than I did before I got here.
Okay, so you're going with the stereotype, because that's one of the biggest stereotypes, and maybe it is a misconception about people being bad drivers.
No. I mean, stereotypes are there for a reason. People drive absolutely terribly over here because, well, it's a new culture. Cars are new to the culture here, or to the whole country, really. So, people get a car and they're kind of either, most of them actually just buy their licenses, to be honest, or they get their license, they do the tests and stuff, but they more or less pay their way through it. So they get their car, because there's a lot of new money here, so they want to learn to drive, or they want to get on the road quickly. They get on the road quickly, they don't really know what they're doing. They just kind of go wherever they want, and road rules don't really apply. So it's quite chaotic on the roads, and you have to kind of blend in if you want to survive. You have to learn how to drive the way they drive. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere here.
So you've become a bad driver, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to in order to fit in. I mean, I went back.
Did I say aggressive or a bad driver?
Well, yeah, I'd say an inconsiderate driver is probably the best.
Okay.
It's
like woo, there you
go. Yeah, exactly. It's basically, you can't let someone, in front of you, because if you do, then the whole of China will drive in front of you, and you'll be stuck there for the rest of your life. So you kind of have to block people from getting in front of you, even if it's their right of way. And that's just the way it works here. And if you don't do that, you're screwed. It's a bad habit. And I've found myself. I've only been back home once, since I got here.
In 8 years.
Yeah. In 8 years, just once. Yeah. But I went back that one time. I found myself. I had to stop myself from basically being a bad driver when I was on the road back home.
So it is definitely, you would consider China your home then?
Yeah.
It takes a long time to say that too. I mean, people travel, years and years and years, or they live somewhere years and years and years, and I think to actually call it your home, you really have to adapt to it, and you really have to kind of like put your feet in the ground and say like, okay, I'm here. But you would say that that's definitely your.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
The one terrible thing about China is that you can never really be secure, as in like know that you can always stay here, because visa rules and regulations change all the time, which is very irritating. And it's not like other countries that, let's say, for instance, if you get married to a local Chinese person here, that doesn't guarantee you can stay here. In fact, you can't even work. All you can get is like a visitor's visa, like a family visitor's visa, which needs to be renewed every year. Okay. And I'm currently on a work permit here, a working visa, and that allows me to stay and work here for a year at a time. And each year I have to renew that visa.
Is it an E2? I had the same type of thing. Are you under an E2 visa?
It's called a Z visa, or Z visa, I suppose you'd call it, which stands for 工作, which means working. And as long as you've got that visa, you're allowed to stay in China for a year. You don't need to leave. You don't need to go in and out. Some like business visas and tourist visas, you have to go out every month or every 3 months and then come back in. But this one, you can stay for the full year. but every year you need to renew it. And there's a lot of paperwork. You need to go for like medical exams, sometimes police interviews, things like that, which can really throw everything into disarray because, you know, you get to the end of the year and you don't really know if you're going to get your new visa, which is actually quite a disruptive thing in a person's life. You know, I get used to it and I prepare myself every year for like potentially not being able to stay. And that is the biggest challenge, really.
Oh yeah, living overseas is definitely like it's something I just didn't realize, like how amazing it is to just not even be a part of your own country, but not have to go through any of immigration. It's really hard to explain to people like the stress that causes, but it's insane, and it does make you kind of sympathize, I think, with other people living over in, you know, the United States or South Africa. It's like you're just trying to make a living, you're just trying to live here, and it's like you really got to go through those obstacles and barricades constantly.
Yeah,
so,
it's irritating.
I feel you on that. So your YouTube channel, obviously, when you started, was just showing people of what you're doing, but you've definitely generated quite a bit of popularity. What are you trying to show these days? Like, is it just like, hey, I'm bored, or is it like, wow, I really have a good story to tell here?
Well, you know, what I do is my most popular videos are the China How It Is videos.
Yep.
And what I do is I only really make them when I come across a decent topic. You know, either somebody sends me a suggestion or asks me a very good question, or I'm just happen to be doing something. For instance, when I had to move apartments and I had to rent a new place, I thought this is a good topic. You know, this is useful. People might want to know how to rent an apartment. So then I made a video about it while I was doing it. So you know, I need to find a good topic for those ones, and when I do it. And the other stuff I do is just maybe useful little bits and pieces here. I sort of every once in a while do a what's happening in China, you know, just a little update about, you know, maybe some interesting things that are going on around. You know?
You're definitely a credible source. There's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of stuff that people just kind of wing it, or I feel like it's probably boredom most of the time, but I feel like you've obviously learned quite a bit of the language. You've lived there for 8 years, and you're definitely living and breathing Chinese culture every day. So you
yeah,
can
absolutely.
say source.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, the thing is, I'm not trying to be a news correspondent or anything. I'm just a normal average guy sort of living his life here, and you know, I can see things very clearly because I don't come from any politically biased sort of background. You know, I'm not American or you know from any place which has an agenda with China. You know, which you know, let's be honest, there is always an agenda, whether it's a political agenda or just a big biased idea of what a place is like.
No, absolutely.
I don't have that. So I just see it for what it is, and I can, you know, basically tell people what it is without being tinted, you know, sorry, tainted. Yeah.
No, that's,
so
I mean,
that's
so I mean,
yeah.
like, you, this is kind of one of those, I don't know, this is sort of a typical question, but everyday experience in China, like, how do you explain that? Like, the way I could explain it to people in, like, so many different ways. It's possible to say every day is going to be different, but, like, China is clearly different, and I've only been there, obviously, for, like, a week, but it is clearly different, I think, from places in the United States, from probably South Africa. Like, day in the life, how would you explain, open up your door, here's China?
Well, first thing I'd say is people. Lots and lots of people. It's a definite something you have to get used to. Everywhere you go, there are people, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is or what time of night it is, there are people. And I mean, seriously, if I go out of my door at 3 a.m. in the morning, there are people out there on the street.
It's lively.
Yeah, lively. They've got a word for it here. They call it renao, which means kind of like a happy, lively sort of a thing. You go outside, and that's actually one of the things that attracted me to China in the first place. Go out at 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. You've got people out there having barbecue, drinking beer, you know, just families walking around, you know, doing some late night shopping or sitting at a restaurant or whatever. There are people everywhere, so that's probably the biggest thing you have to get used to, is, you know, the vast amount of people, basically. So you go out there, doesn't matter what time, there you go, people and things happening. So it's a very happening place, which is nice. Day in the life, I suppose, it's just like anywhere else where you kind of have to sit in a traffic jam if you're driving. if you take the public transport here, be prepared to have a lot of people around you. Lots of differences in culture, so you've got to get used to the pushing and the shoving and the my pet hate is the spitting. That's something that's still going on here, which really irritates me. Is like the people hocking up loogies on the street in front of you. But other than that,
people always say that's how they do it. But after what, you're like, no, that's just disgusting. I'm sorry.
There's no way anyone can ever justify that to me and say that it's a cool thing or it's normal, because it's not. But Shenzhen specifically is a very upmarket sort of a city. So you've got, a lot of the places I go and work, very high-class office buildings. They've got big, clean CBDs and good infrastructure, fantastic public transport. So it's got everything a big city could have or want to have. You got Starbucks here, and you got all the sort of normal Western chains and amenities. You can find them, if you want them. So it's a good place. You can really just have a normal work day. Yeah.
So it's active. All right.
Yeah. Incredible.
There's a little I don't want to say it's a segment, but we usually ask whoever we have on a bunch of questions. We'll call this like our rapid fire round or lightning round. All you gotta do is answer yes or no, or if it's not a yes or no question, just like a couple adjectives or short sentence. I'm just gonna list them off here. First one is China safe?
Yes.
Nightlife?
It's pumping.
Transportation?
Good.
Cuisine?
Amazing.
Politics. I know you don't have to go crazy into that, but
politics only really affects you if you let it affect you.
Absolutely. Dating culture.
Very easy.
Work life, or actually workforce.
Frustrating, but opportunity is everywhere.
Friendly to foreigners.
Very friendly.
Interesting. Threat.
Minimal.
Interesting. Awesome. No, that's a good answers for sure. Sorry, some of those are like really hard to sum up in like a yes or no question and adjective, but I always find it's funny, like it's like the first thing that pops in your brains. So
yeah, it's a good thing to do that actually. Yeah, I don't think about that stuff normally. So yeah.
But you never felt the threat. I just found it interesting when you turn on CNN. It's like, oh, China, here we go. It's and it's.
That's the thing. That's actually one of the biggest myths that I'd like to dispel about China, is that it's one of the least threatening places I've ever been in my entire life. I've traveled to a fair few different countries, and China is really the safest place I've ever been. And I'm not joking here. Like, because of basically, I think it's due to the fact that there's so many people. Also, the sort of Confucianism that's ingrained into the culture here. And also the big family-orientated sort of way that the culture is. I mean, like when you're out there at night at 2 a.m., you've got like kids out there at the same time with their parents. And, there's like grandmothers and stuff and whatever, all out at 2 a.m. I don't know what they're doing exactly, but they're all there. And, you kind of got this family feeling, so it's really safe. That's why, like, I can walk around in the middle of the night in like a dodgy little village somewhere. You can watch some of my videos where I go riding my motorcycle through these villages late at night.
I love that. You got your GoPro on. I think that's the coolest thing.
It's fun.
You're just ready to go, and then you usually have a little side video at the at the bottom that's kind of like narrating, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. But I mean, you can see that it's safe. I feel absolutely safe. I've never had any trouble. I've never had any attempted muggings or anything like that. So
I guess like the big one, obviously, like I said, I mean, everybody's got a warped. I think it's almost an illusion of what the world really is, and then without saying arrogant, people usually just sound like a dick when they try and like talk about politics. They're like, oh, like, how the hell would I summarize China? It's massive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
It's impossible. But there's tons of channels out there that really do a good job of it. Of BS. It's like TMZ for China. It's just like it's ridiculous. But
exactly. It's silly. That's why I get I get kind of frustrated. I saw a couple of channels, you know, I was also just looking around. You got some channels that are just dedicated to bashing China, and that's all they do is they've come up with these scandalous sort of news articles that they've found on some gossip mag or something, and they treat it as fact, you know, and definitely, you know, China is full of scandal and problems and nonsense, just like any other country in the
I'm from
world.
Detroit, man. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
and I'm from Michigan, but I mean, Detroit's 20 minutes away, and it's one of the most corrupt cities out there, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing that I'd like to put out to you and everyone else who might be watching this is how much does some, let's say, political scandal that happens in, let's say, the American White House, somebody gets caught cheating on someone else, or someone's caught for corruption or something, how does that actually affect your life, the guy living on the street? Does it affect your life, or is it just something that you sit back and say, ooh, that's bad? You know, because that's kind of the way I feel here. Every time I hear about some corrupt politician being nailed for graft or something here in the government, because, you know, it happens often, um, it doesn't make one iota of difference to me. I mean, it doesn't change my life in any way whatsoever, or the life of anyone around me, you know, because some corrupt official in Beijing has been, you know, put in jail, does not change the fact that I'm outside having barbecue with my friends and having a good time. It
No,
doesn't change my work. Doesn't change anything. So, you know, for me to obsess about politics and scandals and things like that, it's just a stupid thing because it's got nothing to do with me actually at the end of the day.
no, it doesn't even affect you, or probably most
Yeah.
people around you. I think it's just
Yeah, no one, yeah, no, it doesn't affect anyone around me. That's the thing, you know. You see, because I got a lot of Chinese friends here, you know, and of course, living here for 8 years, my girlfriend is Chinese, and obviously her whole family is Chinese, and all the people that I interact with are Chinese, except for a couple of foreigners. I got some good foreign friends here, but they also have Chinese family and, you know, Chinese girlfriends and Chinese whatever. So, you know, it's, you know, I'm there connected to the people around me, and if it was making a big difference to people's lives, I'd know about it, and it's not. That's not what people are talking about. The local people are talking about their property investments, or they're talking about their, you know, what they're going to be doing for the next holiday, or what they had for dinner last night, you know.
But you clearly don't feel that censored then, because that was one of the big, I think, misconceptions. I feel like you guys do have a lot of freedom.
Absolutely.
And Facebook, I don't know how free the internet is, but I do know I found you on Facebook, so I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but I feel like that's
No,
one
no,
of
not at all. Well, you know, the thing is, the the internet is definitely censored here, and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are blocked. If you type it into your browser, it just comes up saying, this website cannot be found. But there are a million different ways to circumvent that through various different VPNs, and there's free software out there, and all the smart Chinese netizens know how to use that anyway. It's no big secret, and it's pretty open. It's out there if you go look online. It's basically, I think it's just to stop the sort of uneducated masses from getting on there, if you know what I mean. Of course, this is just the government's way of trying to prevent people from spreading rumors and getting into like sort of mob mentality, protests and stuff. And whether it's right or wrong, that's the reason they're doing it. But yeah, if anyone's got half a brain, they can get past the restrictions. So.
Sure. Yeah, I've always just found that interesting because they're supposed to be like the biggest censorship, but I'm like, well, I can easily message you, so it doesn't. I mean.
Yeah, this is the weird thing that kind of made me just this might put it into perspective for you. Okay, I've just been on the local TV here. They did an interview with me. Okay, and they interviewed me. Yeah. There's a link on my video somewhere, but on my Facebook page actually. But they interviewed me about making YouTube videos about China and broadcast it on TV here. So I mean that's a bit weird because they're basically saying, "Wow, look at this cool foreigner who makes these videos for a banned website about China." Do you understand?
Right? Is it because you have a pretty good following, or is it because they're really interested in your channel, or is it the foreigner fascination, or probably a mix of all of those?
I think I have a very big Chinese following these days, and most of the majority of the feedback I get from the local Chinese people is good, because they see that I'm very objective. I don't paint China in an incredibly positive light, but I don't paint it in an incredibly negative light either. I basically just show how it is, and I think they appreciate that, because it's different from the majority of, let's just say, other channels about China.
Absolutely. It's either you like praise it so much where it's like, of course you're gonna get, the government's gonna be following. You're just gonna have a lot more support, but it's just so fluffy, and you're like,
yeah,
that's really not it. And then you have the other side, it's like, man, you just really need to enjoy your life. You just spend way too much time invested in things that don't affect you, and it's just like one of those people on the internet just waiting to just write, you suck, you know what I mean? And they just,
exactly.
it's just built inside of them. They can't stand it, but it's like, I don't know. I really don't know what the whole drive behind operating something like that is. But I always feel like it's very polar, you know what I mean? Or it's never right in the middle or lukewarm. It's always someone who has to like, China's the greatest place in the world, or fuck China is the worst place ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does seem to be that way. So I mean, I always try to just be myself and just basically try and keep it as natural as possible. So yeah, that's probably why I got quite a big following. So you got the people watching me in China, and obviously the media got wind of this, and so they started contacting me. I've been contacted by also the China Central TV. They wanted to do a feature on me. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not too, I mean, I don't know. I'm not too interested in being some kind of a celebrity or anything like that. I'm just pretty happy to carry on doing my YouTube videos, and it's really a hobby more than anything else. So.
Well, it seems. I mean, obviously, if people are coming to China, they're gonna find your channel, I think, more useful than some of the blogs out there, to be honest. I would much rather get it from somebody. First of all, I'm getting a tour of it, but on top of that, I feel like I'm getting a narrative of it, and I'm actually seeing it. You know what I mean? Regardless of the video quality or what was put into it or the funny jokes that they sat down there and scripted out over and over and over again. It's like, if I was going to travel to China, I feel like yours would probably be one of the channels that I would want to see, because that's what I'm going to experience. It definitely has a realistic feel to it, because it is. I don't think there's too much smoke and mirrors behind your stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I never script anything. I just sit down with a beer usually and just say what comes to mind. So. yeah. I would have one, I promise you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, for someone coming to China, and this will be the last question I ask you, obviously you could go for a week and you're not going to see anything. You could go as a tourist and you could see a ton. What are some things, if you're going to live there, or if you're going to experience Chinese culture, what are some things you should probably adapt to, or some things that you should know before going?
Oh, okay, that's a tough question. I'd say you have to be prepared, because China is completely different to anything back home, I should say, as a Western person. You have to adapt to a lot of differences. I'd say be on your guard for scams, because there are and I'm not talking about like incredibly bad scams. I'm just saying things like, if you go shopping in markets and stuff, they're going to try and rip you off. So be prepared to bargain and stuff like that. But I'd say be prepared to explore. Go out there and actually try and see things for yourself. China, like I said, is incredibly safe. The people are very helpful. But also another thing is, don't expect people to be able to speak English. That's the thing. Make sure you've got some kind of translation software. Google Translate on your phone, for instance, is a good idea to have. I didn't have that before. Just a phrase book, anything. Because when you get out of any kind of major city, and I mean even still now, unless you're going to Shanghai or Beijing, even places like Shenzhen, where I live, most of the local people can't speak English. There are only very few, and I'm talking about, like, if you call the police, they can't speak English. If you call the hospital, they can't speak English.
Yeah.
I mean, be prepared for that, okay? So have somebody, if at all possible, have somebody who you know living there who can act as a translator. That's very important for you. So just be prepared for that. That, like, even you go into a bank or something like that, very, very seldom do they have anyone who can speak English. And if they speak English, it's usually very poorly. So be prepared for that. That's it.
No, I mean, like, you can people don't prepare. That's the problem. They kind of go there. Actually, when we went to China, we didn't prepare at all, and I wish I would have learned just a little bit of the language, but we find ourselves having difficulties even ordering food. So, I mean, you do have that, not even culture shock, just the reality is I don't think they're not going to cater to you, and I don't expect them to. That's one thing I actually really liked about China. It wasn't like they had to bust out their English handbook. It's just like, no, you don't know Chinese. You can't read Pinyin. You're screwed, basically, you know. Which is good.
Absolutely.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be, honestly. Yeah. So,
Google Translate works well, eh?
Oh, sorry, dude. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's cool.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Okay, you go ahead.
Thanks for coming on the show. And as I say, like I said, this is something that the people tuning in and the people who have been finding idculture.com, we are going to be expanding to a lot of different countries and talking with a lot of different people, and Winston was one of our first that we've got to chat with in China. Check out his channel, and for the people that are watching and have been keeping up, where can they get all your stuff? Like, where can they see you? Obviously, SerpentZA. Don't go to SerpentZA or you won't find it.
Yeah. Very straightforward. Just youtube.com/SerpentZA, or ZA as Americans say, and or Facebook /Winston in China. Any of those two, you'll find everything you need.
Cool, man. Yeah, dude, well, we're looking forward to chatting with you. And like I said, we're going to have some other projects coming up. But, yeah, man, thanks a lot for being on the show. And, yeah, have a good day, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. And, hope to chat to you again in the future. So,
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers. Until then.